Our guest on This is America and the World is the ambassador from the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal to the United States, Sridhar Khatri. We had the opportunity to meet at the residence of the ambassador in Washington, D.C. Formerly, Ambassador Khatri served as the executive director of the South Asia Center for Policy Studies and executive director of the Institute of Foreign Affairs in Kathmandu. He also served as advisor to the mission of Nepal to the United Nations and was on faculty at Tribhuvan University for 27 years. Mr. Ambassador, so good to sit with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome home.
Thank you. That's
You
very
have some
kind of you.
background here.
Well, I grew up here, basically, and where I stayed in my room on 34th Street is my office right now. So that is going way back, 60 years nearly.
And now schooling as well, and the United Nations as well, and now ambassador.
Well, I had the advantage of public school, both in Washington and in New York, and finished my education finally in New York.
It's so pleasant here, and you're seeing Washington and the United States in a whole different frame of mind, huh?
Well, I think I came at the right season. In the beginning of spring, with cherry blossom and all the flowers. Yes. I'd forgotten how much I missed that. It really looks lovely.
Terrific. Tell us two or three things we should know about Nepal.
Well, the first thing is that we have Mount Everest there. 8 of the tallest mountains in the world, 8 of the 10 tallest mountains in the world are in Nepal. It's a lovely country. It is a democratic country, and there is religious tolerance and, again, diversity. Can you believe a small country like Nepal has about 129 different languages and dialects?
Whoa.
So it's a confluence of both Chinese, Indian civilization, and our own identity. And therefore, we have learned to live in terms of tolerance of people, culture, religion, everything.
Do people get along with that such a mixture of different groups?
That's the beauty of it. They get along very well, and there is I would say, a great degree of tolerance. When you meet a Nepali, I think you'll immediately identify him with his friendly personality, openness. That really comes out.
Let's talk a little bit about the basics. It's the population, the capital city. You've mentioned the mountains, the topography.
Right. Well, if you look at compare Nepal with the rest of the countries in the world, our population is around 29 million.
That's amazing.
That's pretty large. If you look at the statistics, that's 49th largest in the world. So it's not actually small. In terms of square miles, it's about 56,000 square miles, roughly. And which means that nearly over 100 countries are smaller than Nepal. So, but we look very small because we're caught between two very large countries, China and India, which has a fantastic growing economy, both of them, and also their population is over 1 billion. So being a small is relative in terms of comparison.
And when you say China and India, what is the foreign policy? Because you're kind of in a delicate situation, aren't you?
Well, yes, and we're also, I think, going to be beneficiary of our geopolitical location also. In terms of foreign policy, our foreign policy is very clear. It's non-aligned, and which means basically we do not align with any country in the world. That has been one of the principles. And right now, even in the new constitution, it has been enshrined in the Constitution that we will remain a non-aligned country.
Okay.
So being next to, again, two large countries means also, since the two countries are growing economically very rapidly and are going to be global powers, we will also benefit from the economic growth.
I will speak for myself as well as some of our viewers, but we here in America suffer sometimes of being a little geographically challenged.
Right.
So when we say Nepal, people are thinking Tibet, they're thinking Bhutan. Help us understand. We'll put a map up on the screen. So tell us a little bit about the neighborhood and the distinction of those different countries.
Well, when you mention that, you think about Tibet, Bhutan, and all the rest. Actually, back in 1964, when I came here, and I used to meet people and say I was from Nepal. Oh, they would say, "Oh, yes, yes, Naples," and I had a very tough time convincing them at that time where Nepal was. So right now, geographically, people are very close in terms of understanding. We are caught between India and China in the middle, but Bhutan is our neighbor. As you know, there is SARC also, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, and there are 8 other countries there, including Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan included, along with Maldives. So that is the region and the locality we live in.
And a rather special part of the world, isn't it, huh?
Well, we pretty much think so, and visitors, when they go to Nepal, also conclude the same thing.
I'm thinking about Mount Everest, thinking about the Himalayas, all these high mountain peaks that you mentioned in our conversation a bit earlier. I want to know the psychological impact of mountains around the citizenry.
Well, it makes people very hardy with the hills and others. If you look at their, I think, physical capacity, their load-carrying capacity, their willingness to work, their dedication. But at the same time, it makes living also a little tough because sometimes you have to go for miles to get water at certain locations.
Oh, wow.
That can be a problem when you're in a hill. But Nepal is just not only hill, it is also a plateau plain in the south.
Okay.
So we have a mixture of both hills and plains.
Mount Everest itself, how does that impact Nepal?
Well, it puts us on the map. Whenever I meet people, whenever I say something and try to explain where we are located, I just say Mount Everest and it just clicks. So in a way, it identifies us, and in a way, it has also helped us to promote tourism, to get people there and also interact. And I think one of the greatest contributions that National Geographic has done is by projecting the Himalayas and also projecting Nepal together with the Himalayas.
Let us take a little break. Tell the folks at home we're talking with the newly arrived ambassador from Nepal to the United States. We'll continue our conversation, learn more about this fascinating country right after the break. This is America and the World. This is America and the World is made possible by the Japan-America Society of Washington, D.C., the Republic of Uzbekistan, the Sultanate of Oman, the Kingdom of Morocco, 21st Century Citizenship, the Frank Islam and Debbie DRIESMAN Foundation, the Forerunner Foundation, the Rotondaro Family Trust, and the Embassy Series, uniting people through musical diplomacy. Ambassador, 29 million people, what drives the economy?
Well, it's mostly agriculture. About 70% of the people are dependent on agriculture. But right now, in recent years, the service sectors covers nearly about 62% also of the economy. The GDP is around $35 billion, which isn't very large when you compare it with developed countries. But slowly we're trying to move forward with there.
And so who would be the trading partners?
The primary trading partners are the neighbors, as you might have guessed.
Okay.
India figures very prominently. China, our trade is increasing, but our trade with the United States and also European Union is also significant.
What kind of goods come back and forth between the United States and Nepal?
Well, mostly manufactured products, medicines, electronic gadgets, technical equipments and others from the United States. From Nepal, mostly right now, it is carpets. Nepali carpets are famous in the world. On top of that, you have a variety of herbs, other products that are coming in. We're also trying to talk with the larger companies here, for example, Walmart and others, to see how we can market those products here.
Is there an opportunity for American companies to invest there?
Oh, definitely. There has been efforts in the past, and we're also working on it now. Energy, hydropower is I think, one of the main area. You can also invest in other forms of energy, solar and others there. Investment possibilities in terms of, I would even take the IT sector. That has been on my agenda since I came here because somehow I think we missed the IT revolution in Nepal. And everything is IT these days.
Sure.
So I think Nepal has a substantive base now to contribute to the IT sector. For example, we have a surplus of energy, which is very consistent, and it is clean energy, hydropower. So there is certain attraction for companies who are trying to use clean energy. The internet connection is fantastic, power to none in the world. And we have software engineers there. So all the background, the ground for investment in the IT sector is there. We just have to identify the niche market and get the proper companies to join and come in.
The whole system, when you mentioned IT folks there and training, the whole arena of education has gone from kind of 0 to 60 in a rather short period of time. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the United States has been, I think, very helpful to Nepal in terms of education and in terms of governance also for over the years. The investment made by the United States in these areas have been very significant, and I think we're seeing the results of that. Right now, you'd be surprised, there are so many universities, medical schools also coming up, producing a lot of doctors, nurses, and actually we're even exporting some of our nurses abroad to provide services. So I think the specialization that we did not see before in Nepal, the possibilities are there and increasing.
You mentioned the folks there as being hardy because of some of the topography that's there, the geography, topography. What would you say are characteristics of the people? Or I'll back it up and ask, what's at the heart of the culture there?
Well, I think it's openness, welcoming, friendly, and eager to know your counterpart, whoever visits there. And it wasn't, it is not unusual when you travel in different parts of the country and you're caught between one point and the other. And you ask direction on how to go there. And people will say, why are you in a rush? Stay here and go. So that type of courtesy, see that. And that, I think, after, traveling in the West, it becomes very touching when you hear that from the Nepali people.
Drill down a little further on the influence of Hinduism and Buddhism on the culture. Buddhism is something that's very, very interesting to me.
Well, we have about 80% Hindu in Nepal, but we're a secular state. And we take pride in the fact that Sita, Lord Ram's consort, was born in Nepal, while again, that is a very emotional and religious attachment we have. The other is that Lord Buddha was born in Nepal, in Lumbini, and that area is developed significantly, and I think that is one of the most interesting religious site for Buddhists for all around the world.
So you're owning both of them, huh?
We've been fortunate that we grew up in their laps.
The idea of when people think of Nepal, they think of it as a kingdom. You know, talk a little bit about the history, some headlines that we would be able to relate to.
Well, Nepal was a kingdom. In a way, it was united by King Prithvinarayan Shah, the founder. Around roughly the same time, the United States was founded, believe it or not. So there is a certain degree of coincidence there. But we had the monarchy for nearly 240 years. And around 2006, we became a federal republic, a democratic federal republic.
I wanted to ask about the horrific massacre of the royal family just after turning into, 2000, I guess. And the reason I raise it, the entire royal family was tragically murdered. Here you come to the United States and you look now at the horrific shootings that we've had in Texas and Buffalo, weekend after weekend after weekend. And just as a human being and someone who's had their roots here in the United States and also coming from Nepal, when you look at America, what do you see? I mean, you've been through the massacre there, and now you're seeing it here.
Well, first about the massacre there, I think that was something very hard to imagine that would ever happen. And even some people I knew very closely were also killed.
I'm sure.
And it was very hard to take. There are many theories regarding the massacre with any, it's like the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories. So I think that will be there for years and decades to come. But coming to your point about the tragedies here in the United States, it's really heartbreaking to see children, people being killed without any reason. And I think that is a big challenge that America will have to face in terms of, one, gun control, societal tolerance, and also getting some of the people, identifying some of the perpetrators beforehand so it does not happen again. Having been educated in schools here in the United States, I can relate very much to the tragedy that people have faced.
What rules or laws are in play in Nepal regarding gun ownership, so we can learn from you?
Well, it's very strict. Even when the Maoist insurgency began, they had very tough time getting guns because the licensing part and the control was very strict at that time. It is still very strict in Nepal. To some extent, you are allowed to use guns for hunting, but only limited number and limited type of guns. Maybe shotgun, maybe 22 caliber, maybe a rifle. They have stopped rifle. Pistols are hard to get. You cannot, except for the security forces. Individuals cannot own them. And not high power rifle either.
Wow. You also come back to the United States at a period of time when we're very polarized. And so my question would be, when you, and here you are now, a federal democratic republic, our democracy is threatened.
Well, I never thought, to be very frank, that I would see the difficulties the United States is going through right now. But at the same time, having understood the nature of US democracies, I think it is strong enough to overcome the division and the challenges that are faced. Because if you look at from the very beginning, the founders of the United States, there was a lot of thought and debate that went into the founders and what they contributed in their writings. And you have a foundation that will always remind you where you need to be and need to go. So I think any society faces challenge, and this is one of those period in US history. And the US is, I think, very strong and strong enough to overcome it.
Tell us a little bit how the government now operates in Nepal.
Well, we made a very ambitious leap after the monarchy, collapsed, and we became a federal democratic republic, which meant that we went from a centralized system to a federal system, which means we have different provinces, and we have, again, delegation of authority that will be exercised by provinces and at the state federal level also. To be very honest, in every democracy, every country learns step by step. And we are in the learning phase, and what I would call a democracy in progress.
I like that. How do you see your role here in the United States? You've touched on it a little briefly with the idea of attracting foreign investment. But how are you received here, and what do you see as your mission?
Well, I was fortunate to be here at a time when the Millennium Challenge Corporation Bill was ratified by our parliament, which means that a lot of doors opened for me here. And I've had my contacts in state, at Pentagon and USAID and other places received me very warmly and cooperating each step of the way. So that part I would see as being very fortunate. And I think my mission at a political level would be to build on the 75 years anniversary of our diplomatic relations with the United States and to see that it is strengthened in the years to come. Economically also, I think we have great possibilities, not just in terms of trade. I think what we need to do and build on is that Nepal, I don't know if you're aware, the United States trades with the rest of the world on the basis of deficit. But with Nepal right now, it is trading on the basis of surplus. So that is a major thing that I think we need to focus on and change in the coming years so that we have a better, level playing field with the United States. But I think in terms of other issues, investment from the United States, I would love to see investment in the IT sector. In other areas, opening up markets for our carpet industry and others so that we can promote it better. It is a challenge for us also.
So if someone from the State Department or someone, and you've entertained many, many senior American officials there, if someone new from the State Department came abroad, or if we came abroad to do some television programs, what would you have us see? What would you have us experience?
About Nepal?
Yes.
I think the people and the country. We are, I think, a country with diversity, which I think in terms of culture, in terms of religion, in terms of general practices of people, they stand out. We can be very friendly. We can also be very enterprising. It is a combination. And I think Nepal is just stepping out into the world. And with the opening that I see, I think it will be a very good opportunity for Nepal to project itself abroad.
Wonderful. You've served in government, as I mentioned, United Nations. You have been in and out of our country. Professor at the university, 27 years, as I recall. Political science is your area of expertise. Love sports, family here. What's the single most important lesson you've learned on a personal basis as a human being that kind of helps you navigate through life?
I learned this very early in life. You never stop learning. That's been my lesson in life.
How has it served you well?
Well, it makes me want to learn more each time. Learn about the country, learn about different aspects, learn about, even to be very frank with you, with the pandemic, learn even how to cook. That was also something. So, your learning never ends. I think that is the biggest lesson I've had in my life.
Mr. Ambassador,
Thank you.
an honor to be with you today. Thank you for the education and the opportunity.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For information about This is America and the World, visit our YouTube channel, This is America TV, visit our website, thisisamerica.net, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can listen to all of our ambassador interviews on our podcast, The Ambassador Series. It's available on our website and iTunes. This is America and the World is made possible by the Japan-America Society of Washington, D.C., the Republic of Uzbekistan, the Sultanate of Oman, the Kingdom of Morocco, 21st Century Citizenship, the Frank Islam and Debbie DRIESMAN Foundation, the Forerunner Foundation, the Rotondaro Family Trust, and the Embassy Series, uniting people through musical diplomacy.